Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Fiqh of Zakah, a series of programs where we look into this important topic of Zakah, how to understand it, how to implement it, some of the rulings that are upon all of us, especially those who have to pay the Zakah. I'm joined by Sheikh Muhammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair for being with us.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's my pleasure, Jamil. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Okay, previously, in these episodes of Zakah, we've been speaking about the definition of it, the rulings of it. We even went into some detail into the virtues of giving, and especially Sadaqah and Zakah itself. Now we entered into the topic of nisab, or that amount of money that you have to exceed over a lunar year. Now when you spoke about this topic, Sheikh, there's one area of it that is quite pertinent to our days nowadays. Many people say that I'm in debt. Okay, I've got enough to forego the nisab, but I'm in debt. Do I have to pay zakah?
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wal aqibatu lil muttaqeen. Wa la udwana illa ala al-zalimin. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأولين والآخرين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. First of all, let me make a very small correction. With regards to an-nisab, it is not that you have to exceed it in order to be zakatable. No. Once somebody possesses the exact nisab. So for instance, the nisab of gold and silver, for gold is what's equivalent to 20 dinar of gold or 85 gram of gold. So once you possess that much gold or anything that's equivalent to it, of cash or paper money, then it is zakatable, as long as it is maintained for one entire lunar year. So now if somebody is in debt, and meanwhile he's a millionaire, not just he possesses the nisab, he borrows from the banks and he borrows from this and this in order to expand his business and grow his real estate and so on. Does he have to pay zakah on his position even though he's in debt? Well, we have to look into what kind of debt he is owing to others. Is it an immediate debt with regards to a debt that has to be paid immediately? If this is the case, then pay it off and you pay zakah on the remaining position that you have if it is zakatable, if it reaches the nisab. Well, if it is not due immediately and it is due over several years or whatever, then you pay zakah on the entire position you have, even though you are in debt. Otherwise, you can imagine rich people, billionaires, do not necessarily invest only in their wealth. They take money from here and there. So if they borrow from banks and they borrow from individuals and from institutes and say, well, I'm in debt, so by the end they will get to pay nothing. Unless if the debt is due immediately, then in this case we say, please pay it off, and that will be deducted from the amount which is zakatable. The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, which is collected by Imam Ahmad, لا صدقة إلا عن ظهر غنى. There is no due charity or obligatory zakah unless if the person is rich. But if he's in debt and cannot pay, then he's entitled to receive the zakah. And also في hadith Mu'adh, when the Prophet ﷺ sent him to Al-Yaman, he said, تؤخذ من أغنيائهم وترد على فقرائهم. So as-sadaqah, the mandatory zakah, is to be taken from the rich, not from the poor.
Jazakallah khair. Now we come to the situation, like you said, of the people who have enough, they reach that limit. What if somebody reaches that limit, Sheikh, and passes away now? What happens to that wealth before it's given to the inheritors and so forth?
The verses of inheritance of Surah An-Nisa normally are ended up with the following. For instance, من بعد وصية يوصى بها أو دين, or من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين, and so forth. Which means that the inheritance should be divided according to al-fara'id, which have been stated in details in Surah An-Nisa. But after making sure that the debt of the deceased is settled, then his wasiyah is fulfilled. So we take out the debt in the wasiyah, then the remaining inheritance will be divided amongst the heirs. So if somebody died before even paying off his debt, which is due to other human beings, دَيْنُ اللَّهِ أَحَقُّ بِالْقَضَاءِ. This is the debt that he owes to the poor, he owes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be distributed amongst the poor. A woman once came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, Ya Rasulullah, my mother passed away and she owed a month of fasting. أَفَأَقْضِيهِ عَنْهَا? Shall I make it up in her state? So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam used the reasoning method in order to state the hukm. He said, لو كان على أمك دين أكنت قاضية عنها? If your mother owed a debt to somebody, were you going to pay it off in her estate? She said, certainly. He said, فَدَيْنُ اللَّهِ أَحَقُّ بِالْوَفَاءِ أَوْ الْقَضَاءِ. So indeed Allah's, whatever the person owes to Allah is more worthy to be settled first. So the order will be as follows. Somebody died, and he died after the hawl has rounded up. Okay, because if he died before that, he doesn't owe anything, because he must have paid the zakah on the year before. And if he died before the hawl rounded up, that means the money will be divided amongst the heirs, and every person will check his wealth whether he owes zakah or not, because sometimes his inheritance is very low, so it doesn't reach the nisab, and sometimes it is zakatable. Every person will examine his own condition. But the person who passed away before the hawl doesn't owe anything. Passed away right on the hawl or after, because he was in his sickness and he did not have a chance to take out the zakah and dispense it amongst the poor. So in this condition, his heirs are required to pay off the zakah in his state.
Jazakallah khair. You've mentioned something about debt in that, about paying off the debt. The debt of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the more obligatory. Now, what if somebody gives money? He's a creditor. He gives, for example, A gives to B a certain amount of money. Can that person take this money he's given and take it off his zakah? I mean, I know you're smiling at this, but people do ask these questions.
It's called outsmarting, though.
And we get asked these questions, as you know.
It is. And it is better to ask if you don't know. The Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا دَوَاءُ الْعِيِّ السُّؤَالِ. If you don't know, just ask. And instead of guessing the answer on your own, then falling into the trouble of violating the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The mas'ala once again, that I gave you some money. I'm a creditor. I lent you some money. You're a poor person, are you? So you're broke, you file for bankruptcy, and you cannot pay me anymore. So whenever it is due upon me to pay my own zakah, I say to myself, I owe 10,000 and I give this guy 10,000. Why don't I just write it off and I say, Jamil, I forgave you. And this way, I hit two birds with one stone. It's like I collected my money back from you, and meanwhile I paid my zakah. That's invalid. Why not? I'm helping somebody who's poor, and meanwhile I'm paying my zakah. It doesn't work this way. Giving the zakah is a ibadah, an act of worship, right? And always in every ibadah, it must be preceded with a niyyah.
So true.
Well, I did not precede that by an intention. Look, if I know somebody who is broke and he's in debt and he's in trouble, and I intended to give him this money as a zakah, then it works. It counts as zakah. But I lent somebody money and he was not able to pay, I cannot just write it off my zakah. Same, I cannot write off the tax which I pay, whether in Muslim countries or non-Muslim countries, say this is similar to the zakah. As zakah to ibadah is an act of worship, it has to be dispensed amongst the 8 categories whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala specified in chapter At-Tawbah, verse number 60. or those who are in need most of the 8 categories. So if it is not preceded with this intention, it could be a voluntary charity, it could be a loan, it could be a bribery, you never know. So you have to formulate an intention before paying this money to the recipient.
Okay, within that, Sheikh, you spoke about the payment. What about the postponed payment? Now, another question that usually comes up, some people say, well, look, I've got money in certain stocks or shares, I can't retrieve that money out. Or I have money in account, and if I take the money out early, I'm going to lose out. Can it be postponed even though it's past your haul?
This is a very common question. Remember the conditions of the zakah, besides al-Islam and freedom. Most important 2 conditions, an-nasab and hawalan al-hawl. The lunar year. Once it is due, this money is very dangerous. It can destroy one's wealth. You must take it out and pay it off to the poor immediately. It must be dispatched from your wealth immediately. You cannot postpone the payment of the zakah for any reason. But my money is stuck somewhere, even if you have to borrow, because this is the right of the poor. It may be postponed for a few days, a couple of weeks, because of transferring the zakah from fund to fund, distributing the zakah, locating those who are eligible, yet it should be done earlier than that. So once it is due, you never know. What if you die in a condition where you did not pay for your zakah? What would you tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So the zakah, if it is not taken immediately from the wealth of a person, it can lead to its destruction.
Jazakallah, Sheikh. Okay, well, we've come to looking at the destruction of the people if we don't pay our zakah on time, the importance of not putting it with your loan, but to have the right intention. We're going to take a short break and return in a couple of minutes. Please stay with us on this topic of fiqh of zakah.
Give a little love, give our time, give our wealth, give our love, give ourselves.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the fiqh of zakah. Sheikh Muhammad, just before the break, we entered a very important topic, and I think we should maybe expand upon it slightly, because we're probably going to get a lot of people asking us later on. This topic of not paying or delaying your zakah, Sheikh, can we go into it slightly more? So now we have an issue where a person says, I'm not going to pay my zakah because I've got money tied up, or I can't get it out for another month or 2 or 3 months, or even an unspecified time. What do we have to say about this?
The Prophet ﷺ says, مَا خَالَطَتِ الصَّدَقَةُ مَالًا قَطُّ إِلَّا أَهْلَكَتْ. How would you like this to happen to your wealth? A person who postpones the payment of zakah after it is due, the Prophet ﷺ says, any charity that stays in one's wealth, he would definitely destroy it. So nobody likes a destruction for his wealth, a loss. So you rather take it out immediately. It's a means of purification of your wealth. And the best example of all is Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not just with the mandatory zakah, but once the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying, it was Asr prayer. Uqba ibn al-Harith is the companion who narrated that. And it's a sound hadith collected by Ahmad or Bukhari and others. He said, then after we prayed, normally the Prophet ﷺ used to turn around, face his companions and make khitam as-salah. Instead, this time he got up and he was in a hurry. He rushed and he left. He went to some of his rooms, then he returned back immediately. He saw that people were amazed. They had question marks on their faces because that was not the Prophet's practice. He said, yeah, he explained to them, ذَكَرْتُ وَأَنَا فِي الصَّلَاةِ تِبْرًا عِنْدَنَا. Whenever I was praying, I remembered that somebody gave me some money, gold, to be given in a charity. فَكَرِهْتُ أَنْ يُمْسِيَ أَوْ يَبِيتُ عِنْدَنَا. So I hated that it might stay overnight in my house. So I just left and I ordered them to distribute it. This is how soon it should be distributed whenever it is due. Also, let me expand furthermore. We were talking about the mandatory sadaqah. Now talk about, you live in London, Jameel, and same in the States, in Canada. What happens whenever there is a project and there is a fundraise? There are pledges.
Oh yeah, we get.
We
pledges
never
and-
count on pledges.
Yeah.
We only count on the cash that we collect, because most of the time we don't even get to collect 50% of pledges.
Yeah.
Why? People get warmed up and get motivated whenever the sheikh is giving a
Oh, yeah,
motivating
they're very-
speech,
yeah.
encouraging people to give any charity. Then they make pledges. But when they go home, they think about it. And when they go to work, and when they mingle with the dunya and so on, they get sucked in. So they completely neglect their commitments. That's a promise, that's a vow. No, you should not hesitate to pay what you vowed to do. You intended to give in a charity. Obviously, I want to tell you this. It is not haram. You're not committing a major sin for not paying something that you plan to pay it. But you're missing the reward. And you're breaking a promise that you took upon yourself to give. It depends if you made it as a vow. In this condition, it must be fulfilled. But if it was just a voluntary commitment, then you should fulfill it. But if you did not fulfill it, you're not blameworthy, because you did not pay it yet. And that's why I say you should rush to fulfill your commitment before Satan would whisper to you and say, the future of your children and the tuitions of the school, and you never know who's going to get sick and who would need the money. And somebody would talk to you and say, you know what, this project, I don't think they really need that much money. They collected more what they needed. Look, you intended to give for the sake of Allah, then do it. Fulfill it. Postponing is a great disease. Postponing the tawbah, repentance, postponing giving in a charity. And the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said something very interesting in this regard. When he was asked about which charity is best, he said, أَن تَصَدَّقَ وَأَنْتَ صَحِيحٌ شَحِيحٌ تَخْشَى الْفَقْرَ وَتَأْمُلُ الْغِنَى. Meaning, the best charity is to give in a charity while you are healthy, you expect to live a long life, and you are afraid of poverty, and you're eager to get richer and richer. وَلَا تُؤَجِّلْ, and don't postpone until you're already told that you're not going to live for 2 or 3 days.
SubhanAllah.
Some people are told by the doctors, and some they just die immediately without any further notice. So whenever they know that they are approaching their end, they start, while they're lying back on their beds, they start distributing their wealth and give that much charity to so and so, and give to this masjid such and such amount, and so forth. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, وَقَدْ كَانَ, whether you distribute it or not, it is not yours. It has been already distributed because it's over for you. So the best charity, once you make up your mind, you want to give, do not hesitate, no postpone.
Jazakallah khair. Now, you said don't postpone and give on time and so forth. So some people now, okay, and we've been asked these questions before, so these are not something that are just coming up, but some people say, okay, I'm a bit scared. I'm the kind of person that I get, the dunya is on top of me. I'm working 9 to 5, I'm going back and forth, I'm picking my children from school, and I know I'm going to miss. I'm going to miss when it comes to my zakah time. Can I give it in advance if I organize myself, Sheikh?
As a matter of fact, this is a solution for another problem. Some people make a big error and they think they're doing the right thing, whether individuals or organizations, which is, they say, if I give this poor individual or poor family, they don't know how to control money, so they're going to waste it all at once. So once the zakah is due on his wealth, what he does is he separates the zakah payment and he starts giving them on installments, on monthly basis, or payments. Your intention is good, but you're committing a big sin, which is delaying the zakah from its proper time. So what am I supposed to do? What you're supposed to do, if you'd like to assist people on a regular basis, you can actually pay off your zakah in advance. For rich people, mashallah, may Allah give them more and more, their wealth may increase. So they expect that if they are going into a project or a business or a trade, that they expect that much money in the near future or next year. So they can estimate approximately how much they're going to make or how much their money owes the zakah, and they start paying that in advance. whether a year or 2 or 3, and whenever the zakah is due, the payments will be deducted. What is the difference? The difference because I intended, so the niyyah preceded the payment. I intended that this money is from the zakah of the next year or the following year, and so forth.
Jazakallah khair. Now, you've come to this point now where somebody's paid their zakah on time and they've done everything that they're supposed to do. But they've got a problem, and the problem is, Sheikh, is that sometimes when you start paying zakah, okay, and you pay it on time and you give it on time, what happens? You exceed that amount. You know, we spoke about the sadaqah and exceeding. Now, can they take zakah back? Is that possible for them to do?
No, what we can do is, number one, if you want to give it away as an extra charity, you understand and we all believe that we will get more and more and more. But if you don't want to, you can deduct it from the zakah of the following year.
So how would that work practically? Say, for example, somebody is supposed to give, say, $1,000, they give $1,200. And then they see the mistake and they think, oh, hold on.
It's not a mistake. By the end of the year, they only owe $1,000. Okay, this $1,000 from this year.
Okay.
And the $200 from the zakah due of the next year.
Very straightforward, very simple. Jazakallah khair. Okay, there's another point that you discussed before. I just want to speak about it slightly. You spoke about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us about those people who give zakah and those ones who are forthcoming in this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes dua for these people, or should we say puts peace on them or prayers upon them. What does Allah mean by this, Shaykh?
The verse is very clear in this regard. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the Prophet to take the sadaqah, the mandatory zakah from the wealth of the rich and pay it to the poor, he said, خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. Then he said, وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ. صَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ, the word صَلِّ does not mean the literal prayer. Rather it means ad-du'a. The Prophet's prayer to us is to make dua for us, to ask Allah to bless us. Such as when we say, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, we're asking Allah to bless Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his family. So, وَصَلِّ عَلَيْهِمْ إِنَّ صَلَاتَكَ means your dua, your prayer, your invocation for them is a mean of tranquility and peace of mind for them. So it is recommended to make dua for the muzakki, the person who pays the zakah. Whether it is the state which is collecting the zakah or individuals. Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, narrated that the Prophet ﷺ used to, whenever he would receive a charity from somebody, he used to make a dua for him. The dua was derived from the verse. He used to say, Allahumma salli alayhim, Allahumma salli alayhim, oh Allah bless them, oh Allah bless them. So when his father, Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa, when his father paid his sadaqah to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, Allahumma salli ala ali Abi Awfa.
Subhanallah.
So it is recommended for us whenever we collect the zakah to make dua also for the muzakki, the person who is making the payment. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam once received a beautiful she camel as a zakah. He looked at it and he said, Allahumma barik fihi wa fi ibilih. Oh Allah, bless this man who donated or gave this she camel as zakah, and bless him in his camels. Allahumma barik fihi wa fi ibilih.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. I can see from all of this that the topic of zakah is not a very simple topic in terms of the rulings. I mean, there's some details, but also there's a lot of benefits that are part of our general life, like making dua for people, expecting good for people, not being miserly in the way that we're running things.
I can assure you, and this is not my statement, this is Allah's statement fi Surah Taha. If we follow the doctrine of Allah and the divine revelations, then all of us will experience the happiest life on earth and the greatest return in the hereafter. And only when people deviate and turn away from the reminder and the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah makes their life miserable, in addition to the awaiting punishment in the hereafter. May Allah grant us the best reward in this life and in the hereafter.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh, for all your advice today. Well, as you can see, another excellent episode of the Fiqh of Zakah. We went into more detail about this very important third pillar of Islam. I hope you can join me next time on the Fiqh of Zakah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.